Hey friends, I'm Robin. Welcome to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about some January releases. I love looking and keeping up with all of the new releases. And so I have a couple of books that I've written down that I'm really excited about. Ones that a couple of them I've already read, and I just kind of want to share them with you guys, share my thoughts about them. A couple of them are ones that I have recently picked up. A couple of them are ones that I have arcs for and reviews are going to be coming. And other ones are just some that I'm really excited about or have my eye on. I do want to preface this whole video by saying that I don't actually have any like indie romances on this list. I think I have one on here, and it's just because one, indie romances tend to be announced like with really, really short time frames. And so they are not announced like with traditionally published books like months and months in advance, sometimes years in advance. Sometimes they are like, hey, I have a book coming out this week or next month or something like that. Two, they are not promoted in the same way. And so my usual avenues for finding these books don't tend to share the indie published romances. And so I tend to find out about them, even if they were announced earlier, I tend to find out about them right before release date. And so I don't actually have many on here. I'm hoping that moving forward I can start looking more into it. However, I didn't really have the time with this one. I had already spent a lot of time looking through all of the ways that I normally look for these books. And so I didn't have time to like go back and like retroactively try to figure out what was coming out in January. So there is only one indie published romance on here. However, I do also keep up with indie published romances. I didn't have any for this list for a couple of different reasons. This list is going to be organized by release date. So we're going to start with the 4th and we're going to move through the rest of the month. I am hoping to do these videos every single month. If they become like too much to keep up with, I might start doing like 2 months at once. However, I tend, because I am like a new release reader, I tend to have a lot of new releases that I'm anticipating or have my eye on each month. And so these lists would get very long. As it is, I have 14 books that I want to talk about for the month of January, and January isn't even a super big release month, which is why I decided that I wanted to do this monthly instead of bi-monthly. But we will see. We'll see how this video goes. We'll see where the year takes us. So without further rambling and introduction, let's just get right into the January releases. So starting right away on January 4th, there are 6 releases that I want to mention that I've already read, reviewed, or that I have my eye on. The first one being Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins. I got this one for review, and I read her last mystery thriller, which was The Wife Upstairs. This one is kind of like a closed door, isolated mystery. You are following this couple who takes these 2 women to this really remote Pacific island, and there they run into this couple that is already there, and then some mysterious, dark things start to happen. This book is definitely a polarizing one. Some people really, really seem to love it. Some other people, like me, unfortunately did not vibe with this mystery thriller. However, it is one that I still wanted to mention. This author has been chosen for Book of the Month a couple of times. She is very popular in the mystery thriller genre. This is one that I could definitely see people like really working for people. It just didn't really do it for me, but it's still one that I wanted to mention just because it is, I think, a really hyped release for the month of January. So this is one that comes out on January 4th. The second one that I read already for this release date is When You Get the Chance by Emma Lord. This is the 3rd book by this author. She wrote Tweet Cute, as well as, I'm totally blanking on the name of her sophomore novel, but this is the 3rd book by this author. And this is the 3rd book that I loved by Emma Lord. This book, I was a little nervous going into it because I didn't realize at the time that I had requested this, but this book kind of has to do with like theater and fame and things like that. And that's not usually something that I enjoy in books. But this one was so much fun. You're following this girl who really wants to become a Broadway star, and she secretly applies for this internship, like pre-college program on the West Coast, but she lives on the East Coast, and her father does not want her to go to this program. And so she kind of like starts down this path to try and convince him to let her go. And in order to do that, she wants to find out who her mother is because she has never met her mother. Her mother gave her up to her father when she was an infant, and her dad has let it slip that her mom is in theater in some capacity. And so she starts down this path to try and discover who her mom is and possibly use that to convince her father to let her go to this program. Along the way, there's a lot of personal growth, there's a lot of like romance and all of these fun like theater things. This is a very Mamma Mia-esque, which I really, really enjoyed. I really liked all the characters. I highly, highly recommend checking out this next book by Emma Lord. The rest of the books are ones that I have not read. The next one I actually do have though, and that is The Ivory Key, and I have not looked up how to pronounce this author's name, so I'm not gonna try and pronounce it on camera and then incorrectly say it. I am gonna have to look at the audiobook and see how to properly pronounce this. But this is a new YA fantasy that just came out, and I actually don't know a whole lot about this. I bought this one because the cover is stunning and I've just been seeing it like on a lot of different lists. I believe that we are following a group of siblings who are trying to solve like the loss of magic, if I am not mistaken. I was correct. They're trying to solve the loss of magic. These siblings are coming back together. I don't know how many books are going to be in this. I don't know if this is a standalone. I don't know if it's a trilogy. I don't know if it's a duology. I have absolutely no idea. It says that there is a slow burn romance in it. You tell me there's romance inside of a fantasy, I'm going to want to pick it up. After that, one of my most anticipated releases of the whole year releases on the 4th, and that is Beautiful Nightmares by KJ Sutton. This is the 4th book in the Fortuna Sworn series. I have talked about this a lot in some of my like TBR videos that I've been putting up recently, but this is an adult fantasy romance series. I'm not going to go into the synopsis of this 4th book, but essentially you are following this main character, Fortuna, who is a nightmare. She can see into people's heads. She can see your greatest fears and then turn those fears against you. And she gets pulled into the Fae court in order to save her brother. And she becomes a Fae queen, all of these things. And the story has really progressed from there. And from what I have heard from people, this 4th book is 1, super long. 2, it has like totally changed the narrative, especially in the romance. And I'm really excited to get into this final book. KJ Sutton has said that this 4th book really, really tried her and pushed her as a writer. So I'm excited to see like how her writing and how this story has changed. And I cannot wait to get to this one on the 4th. The next book releasing this day that I have my eye on is The Kindred by Alicia Dow. This is the same author as The Sound of Stars. And this is another YA sci-fi story. I'm just going to read a little bit of the synopsis off of Goodreads. It says, to save a galactic kingdom from revolution, kindred mind pairings were created to ensure that each and every person would be seen and heard no matter how rich or poor. Then the royal family is assassinated, putting Felix, the next in line for the throne. Someone will stop at nothing until he's dead, which means that they will target his kindred, Joy, too. Meeting in person for the first time, they steal a spacecraft and flee, and crash land on the strange and backward planet called Earth. Hiding might be the perfect way to discover the true strength of the kindred bond and expose a scandal and a love that may decide the future of a galaxy. And then the final book on this day is Waking Romeo by Catherine Barker, and this is a YA sci-fi Romeo and Juliet retelling. I have technically started this one, but I'm only 2 chapters in, so I don't have a review quite yet. But it says it is a spectacular genre-bending retelling of Romeo and Juliet asking the big questions about true love, fate, and time travel. The little bit that I have read about this book, this is essentially like a post-apocalyptic futuristic story. It's set in like 2083. And in this world, humans learned how to time travel, but they could only move forward in time. And because of that, people started moving forward in time, and it spread our population out across an infinite time. And because of that, society started to crumble because there wasn't enough people left in any one period of time. But this is one that I do plan to read. I do technically have this for review, so hopefully I will have a review for this one coming soon. Moving on to the 11th, there are 3 releases that I have my eye on. The first one being A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. I know a lot of people picked this up in December as their book of the month pick. I've heard really good reviews for it. The synopsis sounds amazing. It is a debut author. It says it is a lyrical thriller following Chloe, who was 12 when 6 teenagers went missing in her small Louisiana town. By the end of the summer, her father was arrested as a serial killer and put into prison. Now, 20 years later, she is a psychologist at a private practice, but when a local teenage girl goes missing and then another, that summer starts to come crashing back. Is she paranoid? Is she seeing parallels? Or is there, for the second time in her life, an unmasked killer? The next one on the 11th is another one that I've already picked up. My local Barnes & Noble is always putting stuff out really early. And The Daughter of the Moon Goddess is one of those. This is one of my favorite covers that I've seen already for this year. It is just absolutely stunning. This is another epic YA fantasy. And this is another one, I have no idea if this is a standalone, if it's part of a series. It's definitely something I'm gonna have to look at, but I am just gonna again read a little bit of the flap here. It says, it is an enthralling debut fantasy inspired by the legend of the Chinese moon goddess, in which a young woman's quest to free her mother sets her on a dangerous path and pits her against the most powerful immortal of the realm. And then the last one for the 11th is The Monarchs by Cass Morgan and Danielle Page. This is the sequel and conclusion to the Ravens duet. This is a new adult, older YA duet. You are following these two heroines who are part of a sorority, so this is set in college. One of them knows that she is a witch and she is trying to become the president of her sorority. That is a kind of a front for this like coven of witches. And then you are following this other girl who does not know that she is a witch. She decides to rush sororities and she ends up becoming part of this sorority of witches, discovers that she has magic. And then there's this whole mystery plot throughout the first book. I really, really liked the first book and I'm excited to see what happens in the second one because most of the mystery wrapped up in book one. There were a couple of dangling threads, but I'm excited to see where the story goes and how it all wraps up. On the 18th, two of my most anticipated books for the first half of the year release. The first one being Electric Idol by Katee Robert. This is the second companion book to Neon Gods, and this is a steamy adult romance. I hesitate to say fantasy. It's not set in the real world, but there are no like real fantastical elements in here. You are following this society that is kind of like all of their titles are built off of different gods and goddesses. And so you have a Zeus character, you have a Hades character, but their name is not Zeus and Hades, those are titles. And so this one is following Psyche and Eros. And these are characters that we met in book one. I don't have a good memory of them. I don't think you really need to. You do not need to read these in order if you don't want to read Neon Gods. You can still pick up this next one. This doesn't really have like a continuous story. It's more of a companion novel. I love everything that Katee Roberts writes, and I'm excited for another steamy romance from her. And then the other book is one that I have talked about relentlessly, so I will keep this short and sweet, but is Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly. This is a adult romance that takes place at during a cooking competition, and you are following a recently divorced woman and the first openly non-binary contestant on this cooking show, and the two of them have a romance. This is a book of the month pick for January, and I am so excited for this adult romance. So this is one that will definitely be read right away in January. And then the last release day of January is the 25th, and there are 4 books that I am excited about. The first one being The Roughest Draft by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Broca. This is another one that I've talked about a lot on my channel. Another adult romance. This is a second chance, enemies to lovers sort of romance. You are following this writing duo who had this big falling out after their last book, and they find out that they are contractually obligated for one more book. So they come back together and they decide to go to this writing retreat. They come back together and I assume rekindle their romance. So that comes out on the 25th. This is another one that I plan to vlog and read right away. Then after that is Running Wild by K.A. Tucker. This is, I think technically it is the 3rd book in the Wild series, but this is kind of going to be a companion book. I do believe K.A. Tucker said that you needed to read the previous books in order to fully get into this book, but I'm not positive. You might be able to read this one as a standalone. This one is following a heroine that we met in the first couple of books, but she was a side character and now she is getting her own romance. But I am excited to get back to this world. I love the Alaska setting. The last book on this list and the last book for the 25th is Something Fabulous by Alexis Hall. This is the author of Boyfriend Material. This is an indie published historical romance, and it is also an MM romance. You are following a hero who is a duke, and he proposes like a marriage of convenience to this like girl who was a childhood friend of like his family, and he feels obligated now that he has taken over the dukedom to get married and start like doing all of the things that he feels like he's supposed to do, even though he doesn't have any sort of romantic feelings for this girl. And so he kind of botches the proposal, and in the middle of the night the girl flees the house, and he and her twin brother have to go out in search of her. And so the two men kind of are like, while they're on the road, they are opening up to each other. This is a kind of grumpy sunshine, opposites attract romance, because our Duke hero is very cold, very closed off. He's not in touch with his feelings at all. And the other hero, the twin brother, is very like open and warm and talkative and bubbly and romantic. And so the two of them kind of like butt heads, but in the funniest, cutest way. And you get this like bubbly hero just like slowly warming up this cold, closed off guy. And the two of them fall in love. I really, really liked this. This book was so funny. I was laughing out loud multiple times while reading this. So if you are into like historicals, or even if you are into like rom-coms and you want to start like dipping your toe into historicals, this is a really good one to start with. So that is it for the books that I'm excited about for the month of January. Let me know if there are any like additional ones that you think I should check out in January. Let me know if any of these books are on your anticipated releases, and I will catch you all in my next video. Bye.